Vaccinated Australians will no longer need to apply for an exemption from Home Affairs to travel overseas. The Health Minister Greg Hunt last night signed off on an unrestricted outbound travel from the 1st of November. Joining us live is James Goodwin. He's the CEO of the Australian Airports Association. James, what does that actually mean for your sector? Are you expecting a rush, an exodus as Australians take advantage of the changed rules?
Well, this is exciting news, and we certainly want to see more people flying, but there's still going to be a long road to the recovery. We know that international travel is only at about 2% of pre-COVID levels. And really the important message to travellers is make sure you do your homework. Flying will change, and it has changed. So there are many things that you need to do before you travel. So this is great to see the relaxation of those travel restrictions, because what it says to the rest of the world is Australia is open. It says to those international airlines that we are a destination to have on their schedules, and that's really important news. But to the travellers, make sure you do your homework. Make sure you've got all of those vaccination certificates. Make sure you've got all of those apps that you need on your phone. Make sure you have had your test before you get to the airport. Make sure you know where you're going to get your test before you fly back to Australia, and also have those contingencies in case someone in you or someone in your family tests positive overseas. So there are still plenty of restrictions, but what is good is that we are now open to the rest of the world.
When you talk about that airport experience, the flying experience and how that's changed, I mean, for most of us who haven't been in an airport for a couple of years now, do we need to leave a lot more time for health checks and that sort of thing, especially for international travel? I saw some reports suggesting in some places you'd need to turn up 6 to 8 hours before you jump on an international flight.
Absolutely. The advice is be prepared. Make sure you know where you're going, know what the rules are when you arrive, and also what you need to do before, and all those documents that you need to have before you arrive at the airport. You may not be able to get those answers when you arrive at the airport. So make sure you're prepared is really the key advice. So turning up, yes, hours beforehand is really important to make sure that you've got all of those checks and balances, and make sure that you've got all of those requirements in place, but also the return, re-entering Australia and the conditions that you might have in those other countries. So this is not normal. We're still living in a pandemic, and other countries are still handling the pandemic as well. So you need to be aware of those other requirements in the countries that you're traveling to. And the other thing is, this is really only for Australians at the moment, this freedom to travel. So we want to look at the next stage, and that is opening Australia to the other cohorts, the skilled migrants, the international students, and then when the time's right, to international tourists, because these relaxation of the border restrictions is really allowing Australians to leave Australia, but they're not being replaced with international tourists. So the only way the aviation sector, the tourism sector, and the broader Australian economy is going to be able to get back on its feet is when we start seeing those international tourists again.